Ache, Khoto, Dumerang, Lekai, good guys. This is the Talkative Typecast, and we are about to check out some news. This here it's a doozy, man. It literally is a doozy of an interview, I think. I don't know, a doozy empowered. What are they about? I couldn't tell you, but I bet we're about to find out.
The Empower Initiative has started with personal protection campaigns to deal with gender-based violence. This campaign will this time target university students in Pretoria with safety knowledge and the physical skills to fend off any predators. Pretoria is ranked one of the most dangerous countries or cities, I beg your pardon, the most dangerous cities for women and girls, not only in the country, but also in the continent. Joining us now is Matabo Skonyana, who is the spokesperson for Doozy Power, who joins us via our
A doozy power by you can't make it up, eh?
the link. Matabo, it's great to see you. Thanks so much indeed for making time. Tell us a bit more about this initiative and why you've decided to target.
With a name like Matabo, she better be happy. Matabo. Sekonyan. It's a doozy, baby.
Specifically students this time around.
Good afternoon, Ayanda. Thank you so much for having me. So the Doozy Empowered campaign started in a partnership between Doozy Power and Women Empowered. And we kicked this off in 16 days of activism, starting initially with high school students in townships such as Deepsloot and rolling out to universities across the country. Now, the reason why we have specifically looked at universities and schools and this demographic is these are the women that we see being the most vulnerable to issues around abuse, gender-based violence, and the like.
Abuse, gender-based violence, and the like. Okay. And these women are the most susceptible. High school children and children in tertiary institutions. I mean, teenagers, young adults. I'm struggling here because I'd like to think, and tell me I could be wrong here, most gender-based violence normally happens at the home. It normally happens in private. So the idea that campuses and schools are basically hunting grounds for violent men and abusive, I don't know what we mean by abuse. You swear at somebody, and I guess that's also abuse. So anyway, Harut.
Yeah, and what makes them susceptible to this kind of violence, do you reckon?
Good
is
question.
it because of the environment they're in those
I don't lead her. I must just ask her the question when I end.
universities? Is it because universities themselves don't take this seriously enough? National Doozy Empower Initiative has started with personal protection campaigns.
Oops, wait, my bad. I got excited.
Being the most vulnerable to issues around abuse, gender-based violence, and the like.
Yeah, and what makes them susceptible to this kind of violence, do you reckon? Is it because of the environment they're in those universities? Is it because universities themselves don't take this seriously enough?
Is it because the universities don't take them? I mean, okay, very, very valid question. Let's see if this is going to get answered.
I think it is a myriad of issues. The first thing is obviously just societal. I think that we know that gender-based violence across the board from a societal perspective is pervasive. Now, when
Okay, I hope she answers this question.
you also have an environment within university campuses and school campuses where you have high concentration of people interacting on a daily basis, you do become a lot more vulnerable, particularly
Lots of people interacting on a daily basis. And that makes you more vulnerable. But there's a lot of people around. Okay. You want to then find out, in my head I'm thinking, what is the percentage of male versus females that are at varsity?
because they are perceived safe spaces where you think, I know this person on some level, it's my classmate or it's a friend of a friend. And
It's an uncle. It's a relative. That's even worse. I still don't understand how the campuses are It's pervasive, but yeah, it's strange. I mean, I need to kind of work out why it is that you are specifically going down this route. And it looks like you wanted to teach these young girls to fight against guys. I'm quite sure that Doozy.
Often perpetrators use this perceived safety as an opportunity to perpetuate more violence.
And
What do we mean by violence, dude? I mean, if I'm like, I mean, a person who hits you, they are violent, so you don't hang out with them and put yourself in a situation where you're gonna be able to get hit by this person. If you want to say rape or sexual abuse in a sense, rather say that because in my understanding of violence, punch me.
of course, what also further complicates the situation is that many people in that space are also coming of age. There is a fair amount of experimenting that happens in the university space, and it's easy sometimes to blur the lines when that happens.
I like Ayanda. He's asking it's not, okay, maybe it's not leading questions, but he's leaving strings and strands for her to attach to in this conversation. And she's not doing it too well. I mean, she just looks like she's there to make a point. Yeah. Okay. Is she going to answer this time?
Definitely. I think a big part of that is also kind of a loose understanding of what is consent, what is coercion. Where do you feel that your no is taken seriously? To what?
I get it. Back in my day, I guess, you were trying to get into the drawers. Like you had to convince this girl, man. It was work, Pussy didn't come easy to us. So, the use of the word coercion is a bit unfair. I mean, what happens if I charm the panties of this person? I really don't care about her, but I sounded really, really sweet, right? And then I got the drawers. Have I coerced you? Because I've kind of made you do something that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. I don't know, man. Coercion sounds so forceful in my mind that a guy being persistent or really trying to get the door, because sometimes you're knocking, eventually the door gets open, man. I mean, that's how things is, because otherwise, if it's always going to be consensual, geez, I might have to ask a girl before I kiss her. Then that kind of takes out the romance. And if the guy is not going to go and take the drawers, then he's a wimp. You see? A bit of a murky one there. But it is GBV that we're talking about, so let me take it seriously.
To what extent do you actually understand what has happened to you? In a lot of our research and conversations that we've had with university students, a lot of them only realized even after the fact that situations that they may in the moment have told themselves were consensual were actually a perpetration.
You know why? When the Minister of Education starts, like by the education is just getting really, really weak in the country nowadays. You cannot be at a tertiary educational institute and then get yourself into some sexual endeavor unknowingly. It's like you can't be in varsity and accidentally become pregnant. What the hell is wrong with you? So you definitely know what sex is at that time. And how is it then only, what kind of stupid person then only realizes afterwards? So it's like, oh my God, well, I didn't actually want that. Yeah, you regret it, you shouldn't have done it, but now you can't blame that dude because you would have generally said no, but you are now thinking no afterwards. It's a retrospective withdrawal of consent. That is a bullshit argument.
For example,
Wait a minute.
Sorry, my apologies. I seem to have
I
lost.
think the internet. Look at this. The internet hates her because she was about to talk shit. Watch her buffer.
Central were actually a perpetration. For example, rape.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
my
internet.
apologies. I
She
seem
was
to have
talking
lost
back.
my
No, it was the
connection
internet
to you
cards
on
I
my tab.
had.
I'm not sure if that's just me, but hopefully you can still hear me.
Internet
as I
batho
ask
bua
my next
masepala
question.
buang motho.
Typically, what I also find is that these discussions happen in echo chambers. Even at
Machiri ke machiri fela ba buang ka ditaba tse. I don't machita bana opinion gore a nkare a thu gore eng kopa eng hey bana shut up, that's our space. Kante who's doing the abusing now? If you are not born You cannot convince a guy to leave gangs or not approach gang life without having a gangster come in and say, "Listen, this is what I went through," and um, that's normally the best thing you could do to kind of steer persons in the other direction. But you're right. If these conversations are just going to be had among the women, how the hell do you intend to get through to the people that are actually causing the problem? And well, it's not a majority of dudes. I don't understand the psyche of a guy that does that. But I would much rather take advice from a guy that's done that kind of shit to see how would I go about circumnavigating those kinds of trends. You know what I mean? That would be a lot more helpful for me to know things like, oh, when do they look for opportunity? Those little small details. You need a rat from the inside. It's not the women that are going to solve this, man. Anyway, how are we?
University spaces, it typically will be the woman, sometimes the women who've been victims of gender-based violence, that attend these kind of talks and want to contribute. What do you reckon it is we need to do to break those echo chambers? Because the only way that such initiatives will become impactful is if they land on people to whom they should.
Danko, brillianto questiono. You know, this Matabo lady. I just feel like her next answer is going to be a doozy.
I think it is one thing to see the statistics. It has been quite another.
So somebody is busy clapping or clicking their fingers on the other side. Did you hear that? Oh yeah, nah.
It is one thing to see the statistics. It has been quite another these workshops. For example,
Hey man, listen. The internet gods, Matabo, know you are a doozy. You keep buffering like that because buanoto. Not a big fat, not maritzi gang wabanakala man. It's another thing.
we did this latest one at the University of Pretoria this week on the 1st of August. And what was scary looking at our research was our broader research showed us that 65% of women that we interviewed had experienced gender-based violence. When we did the survey in the room at the University of Pretoria, over 80% of the women in that room said that they had either experienced GBV firsthand or that they knew someone who'd experienced GBV, with a further 90% of that saying that that case had not been reported.
The details are kind of important here. So, in a room of 100 people, 80% of them say that they've experienced or know somebody that's experienced GBV. Sure. So of those 80, what happens if 62 of that 80 just knew somebody? So now you're going to have 12 people out of that 80, or 12, 13, whatever. I don't know, but you can do the maths. So when you start to lump things like that together, you can't put a fact across like that and say, well, 80% have either been victim of or know somebody. Those are two different things. You should ask, hey, how many people know somebody who has been a victim of? And then you ask how many have been a victim of. You are trying to make the number seem disproportionately large, I feel. That's a very disingenuous way to go about it. And then she says something about further than that, 60. You know, the way these people sometimes try to go about it, it's like word salads.
Firsthand, or that they knew someone who'd experienced GBV, with a further 90% of that saying that that case had not been reported.
So now 90% taken a guy. So we've already said 80% of the people you interviewed. So now 90% of the 80% said it wasn't reported. You see what I'm saying here? The numbers are seeming excessively high, but you say nothing. You really have not even gotten a picture of who then or what the actual rate is at this point. It's just word salading on ninjas, to be honest.
So it's definitely women who are already facing some kind of brokenness who are seeking out these programs. For us,
Mona, if 90% of that 80% only knew somebody that had been, then you can't make the same argument. Please.
What we're hoping as a second step is to have women who are able to get this protection or get the experience of the self-protection course before something has already happened to them.
Yeah, and that's incredibly important. And for people to be able to do that, we need to see the signs. Are we getting it? National Doozy Empower Initiative has
I
started with
keep pressing
personal...
N. I'm sorry.
Women who are already facing some kind of brokenness, who are seeking to get this protection or get the experience of the self-protection course.
Yeah, self-protection. I hope it's not trying to encourage women to now get into physical altercations with men. I doubt that is the damn solution, because just on a strength basis, then that really exacerbates the problem, in my opinion. But
Before something has already happened to them.
Yeah, and that's incredibly important. And for people to be able to do that, we need to see the signs. Are we getting any better at reading those signs of abuse, do you reckon, Matel?
I think it's actually the opposite. So the first thing is just standing on research, and our research with women is saying to us that 55% of them are saying they have felt unsafe in some capacity in the last week. But scarily,
55% of them said that they felt unsafe. Yeah, we all go through load shedding, man. What's that supposed to mean? What does that have to do with guys? I mean, you must ask the question more pointedly, lady.
5% say that they simply don't know how to defend themselves. What that means for women is you're in a situation where not only do you feel vulnerable, you also don't know what to do. Add to that kind of that society.
Here's a weird thing. How much percent of men do you think know how to defend themselves? It's not something that's, yeah, you need to really think about it. Guys are getting shot out there, getting stabbed out there too. I don't know who's got a higher mortality rate in this country, men or women, to be honest. I mean, I live in Cape Town. I'm damn sure that there's a lot more young guys dying. They are killing themselves than there are women. And those self-defense thing, I mean, yeah, a lot of us don't know how to defend ourselves. A lot of us didn't go to karate and judo and stuff, man.
Thing where you don't want to be offensive or impolite unless you're 100% sure that something is wrong. And an important thing that I think we teach in the training is you would rather be seen as impolite or offensive and be more safe than...
I don't think you want to then offend somebody you are scared of. I get psychologically how that works. The best defense is offense and stuff like that. But in a vulnerable situation, first of all, exit the situation is the best. It is the best way. Because now, if somebody takes that to mean just shapakampa man J, this guy's trying to get, nobody wants to immediately go to physical violence. This is this is a doozy, man.
Than the opposite. And this is very different to kind of how women move through society and through their social spaces.
Yeah, it sounds to me that if this is going to hit all the right notes, it's simply a discussion that can't happen without us unpacking socialization, generally speaking, how typically men are socialized and how women ought to respond to that. How much of an emphasis?
How men are socialized and how women ought to respond to that. Great segue. Because there is also how women are socialized and how men ought to respond to that. This should not be in a one-dimensional way where only the men need to do some kind of self-checking too. But yeah, I like where he's going with it. Since it's a doozy, I don't think she's going to answer the question. She's going to sidestep it and not actually address what he said. I'd love to be wrong.
Do you reckon we should place on at least that aspect of the conversation?
Listen to him again.
Generally speaking, how typically without all the right notes, it's simply a discussion that can't happen without us unpacking socialization, generally speaking, how typically men are socialized and how women ought to respond to that. How much of an emphasis do you reckon we should place on at least that aspect of the conversation?
How much on that aspect?
I think it is incredibly important because that is the root, I think, of the thing, is understanding the whys, having the important conversations around consent, is having the conversations...
The way this one is answering, that is the root. It is almost making the assumption that how men are socialized is the problem. This is just what I'm hearing.
With both men and women around what does a healthy yes look like. From a gender-based violence perspective, is understanding what things are simply not acceptable.
How men are socialized, how women ought to respond. It is the root. Consent. Okay.
Until we kind of root that out in society, we are always going to be dealing or reacting to a problem as opposed to solving. However,
You see, it's now saying until we sort out how men are socialized, who's raising these men? Who is raising these men? Because let's actually be honest about it then. How are these men being socialized to be like this?
just looking at this campaign specifically,
The internet doesn't like this.
it's
She's talking shit.
very
That's why she's buffering.
difficult, or it takes certainly a longer period of time to do that kind of impactful psychological change. And our belief is that at the very least, the starting point or step one is to help people, help women specifically, to mitigate those situations and feel a little bit more safe.
Mataba Skonyana, thanks very much indeed for speaking to us. It's certainly a conversation.
I don't know what you guys think. I like Ayanda Nyati. You know, he asked the right questions in the right way. He also got the right intention behind the way he's asking his questions. I'll Doozy that lady. Like, honestly, I don't think she was really answering. Yeah. I mean, because it's her issue, I get it. But there's also an aspect here where you've also got to hear what the guys have got to say about it. Maybe understanding why some things are happening. Yeah, there's a psyche, there's just how people are. And it's an important thing. It most definitely is an important thing, but I don't really sit down and advocate that we should teach young ladies to start trying to get physical in that respect. Avoidance is the best way to go about this. It's probably better to scream and make a noise than slap a guy. You see, the problem is that once you start teaching those kinds of things, that becomes physical abuse. I was walking in the street, I was asking for the number, she punched me. Why can't I go lay a charge of assault? That's abuse. You can't sit down here and try and resolve the problem by teaching people to become reactive in physical ways. The whole thing about this is violence is a physical act. We should not. Don't retaliate fire with fire. You do need water to extinguish a flame. It is what I think, and I think this lady is a bit of a doozy in the way that she's advising these young girls. I don't want to fight. Nobody likes getting into a fight. And defending ourselves is when you are in physical danger. You will notice when you are in physical danger. It takes a while to get into physical danger. Otherwise, it's very sudden. But yeah, man, somebody comes with a knife. Somebody comes with a gun. You know, somebody's physically bigger than you. Try freaking run. Try make a noise. Try get more than one. You know, that's simpler and easier if you do run into individuals that are like that. Personally, I've never done something like that, but I'd also fucking run. You know, fight or flight is what the natural human instinct is in situations of stress, and when the prospect of fighting ends up in a fatality, it's much better to run in general. All right, talkative typecast. I'll see you guys on the next news article.